During the 1950s, the civil rights movement was gaining real ground within American society. At the heart of the civil rights movement was the issue with racial segregation. Segregation had been around since slavery was abolished in 1865. By the 1940s, practically all of America was segregated. Schools, water fountains, restaurants, and barbershops were all segregated. Segregation meant that all colored people and white people were separated due to the color of their skin. The problem wasn't just that these places were segregated. Instead, it was the quality of the places that were segregated. Segregation caused many inequalities between African Americans and whites. People were fed up with the injustice that they went through day in and day out. Segregation had become the way of life for the blacks living in America in the 1950s. In fact, in Montgomery, Alabama, there was a city law that passed in 1900 that segregated bus passengers by race, blacks in the back and whites in the front. But this law said that no person would be required to move if there was no other seat open. But the 1950s bus drivers had begun to ignore the fine print of the law and made people move or even get off anyway. Rosa Parks was not new to fighting for her civil rights. Rosa had said in many interviews that she constantly questions what her rights were as a human being, and she wanted to find out once and for all what her rights actually were. She was a very strong-willed woman that pushed the boundaries wherever she went, and her actions on December 1st, 1955, helped spark a movement within her community as well as the entire country. On December 1st, 1955, Rosa Parks boarded the Cleveland Avenue bus at 6 p.m. in Montgomery, Alabama. After Mrs. Parks paid the fee to get on the bus, she picked a seat up towards the front of the bus. The rules on the buses at this time were very strict. Colored people were to get up and give their seat away to any white person who might board the bus. In the book Back of the Bus by Aaron Reynolds, a little African American boy is sitting in the back of the Cleveland Avenue bus that Mrs. Parks boards and watches the events that take place that day. He is sitting with his mama who just worked a long hard day. He has a marble in his pocket that he takes with him wherever he goes. The bus stops at the next station to pick up more passengers. The little boy in the story sets his marble in the cracks on the bus to watch it roll forwards and backwards as they ride home. The Cleveland Avenue bus was very crowded on that Thursday afternoon. In fact, the bus became so full that there were no empty seats that remained, and the bus driver stood up and asked Mrs. Parks to move for a white gentleman. Mrs. Parks refused. James Blake, the bus driver, called the police. The policeman arrived and asked Mrs. Parks why she will not move. And she says emphatically, "Why do you push us around?" What will happen to Mrs. Parks? Will the little boy lose his marble forever? To find out, read Back of the Bus by Aaron Reynolds.